Good morning, everyone. So I wanted to share some insights, some personal insights on what has worked for me as far as getting back into the regular routine of working out after getting ill. I had been dealing with probably the flu, to be honest, and a stomach issue about 2 weeks ago. And I mentioned this in another video, but it took me longer than I expected to get out. Now, I don't get sick very often, so I almost feel like when I do get sick, everything just sort of compounds on me that week. And, everything from my appetite to my GI stuff to having this crazy headache and body aches, of course, and fever, it really kind of put me out for over almost 2 weeks, actually, about 10 days. And what I realized, and one thing that that has changed for me as I've gotten older, and now I'm gonna be 50, less than 2 weeks, by the way. One thing I realized is that, when I'm coming back off of an injury or coming off of being ill for this, in this case, it's going to take me a little longer to get back into the swing of things. And if you respect your body during that time where you have taken measurements from your Garmin watch or whatever you use to kind of see your heart rate during particular kinds of workouts, you can use those metrics to help you to gauge how well recovered you are. So as an example, for me, my zone 2 is probably between a 138 to 140 heart rate and about a 9-minute pace on a run, for example. Last week when I tried to get back into training again, because I have a marathon coming up in a couple weeks, my heart rate shot up into the 150s, 160s, running that same pace that's normally my zone 2. And so I knew that I was not where I need to be. So instead of doing even a zone 2 run, I just would run until I saw my heart rate going above 140 on that easy run. And I would actually walk until I got the recovery I needed and then started again. So it basically ended up being a walk jog instead of a normal zone 2 run. And for me, that was completely fine. You asked me 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I would have just pushed through that and not given a care in the world. But being 50 soon, in about 2 weeks, my responsibilities, my life pace has changed. So I have, a business that relies on me. I have my family that relies on me. So I've learned to make smarter choices as far as how hard to push when I'm either not feeling great or when I'm still recovering from an injury, in this case, from being ill. So I hope that sort of gives you some guidelines, because I have met too many people over the years, and I was one of them, where I would just push through no matter how I was feeling, and I just ended up delaying the recovery process even more, or delaying the recovery from an injury even more so. And that just didn't do anyone any good. I was more miserable, more frustrated, and just more down on myself, because I was like, oh, why can't I just get through this, right? Or frustrated because I had taken so much time off. Now, one thing that's changed also as I've gotten older is my time horizon for how long I want to stay being active has changed, obviously. And my perspective has changed as well, where it's like, well, if I take an extra rest day or two, or if I dial down the intensity 50% for a couple of days, is that going to really affect anything the next 10, 20 years? 100% no. In fact, I might be a better person for it, or a more able athlete for that in the years to come, because I decided to make the right choices without trying to push through things like I used to in my 20s. I can get away with it. Can't get away with things in your 40s and 50s. I'll be the first to admit that. And that was a hard reality. I had a great conversation with 2 gym members over at Empire in Raleigh. We were talking about how something happens around 45, and maybe you're going through that right now. Something happens around 45 where you start to pause. You start feeling a certain way during a workout, for example, during a run, you're like, maybe I should dial this one back. And I think the more that you and I listen to that voice.
That voice. Voice? What voice?
Again, if you're an older athlete, if you want to listen to that voice a little bit more, I think we'll stay out of trouble. And yes, I know that when we're trying to push that level of performance, of course, it becomes hard to listen to that voice, because I still want to compete. I still want to, push really hard. But I've just gotten a little bit more attuned to that voice telling me, hey, you know what, Jerry, this is probably not a good idea. And I think the times that I've listened to that voice, I have been rewarded by not getting injured or being able to push a little harder the next time in my next workout. So I'm hoping that they give you some guidelines. Now, the other thing that I wanted to say was, even when I did my recent HIIT training over at Empire, when I was still recovering from the flu, what I also noticed was that, during parts of the workout where I normally would not shoot up my heart rate, that also shot up as well. So even the lifting, I actually had to dial things back, dial the intensity back, dial my normal weights back that I might use for a particular exercise, so that, because I was, again, being aware of how I was feeling, and As a result, even though I was at a lower intensity as far as reps and weights, I still felt like I got a good workout out of it. And that's the kind of thing that I think changes as you get older. So again, just a recap, if you are recovering from an illness or from an injury and you're an older athlete, my advice to you would be just to really listen and stay attuned to how you're feeling. Be aware of what your metrics are on a day-to-day basis so that when you do get injured or you are ill, you know that you should have a different expectation when you're recovering from those things, when you're getting back into the groove of things. And don't be so hard on yourself, because you and I are in a different time horizon than someone who's in 20s and 30s, and they can get away with certain kinds of things. You and I cannot if we're over 40 at this point. So being smarter about how you train, being smarter about how you recover, being smarter about how you return to activity after illness or injury, super important for staying in this game of fitness for the long term. So hopefully that was helpful. Don't be hard on yourself. I know I totally am that way, and I get really beat up and bent out of shape. But again, listening to that voice has definitely rewarded me, like I said. So I hope that this helps you if you are in bed right now, or maybe you've got some nagging knee, back, or foot issue that you've been dealing with, and maybe you have a marathon coming up like I do, and you're worried about not being able to perform at your best as a result. If you put the training time in, hopefully that will still come back and help you, because taking a week off is not going to be so damaging to your performance on race day. But hope that helps. Have an amazing day and keep living hard.